Okay, we should be live.
All right. So I guess before we get started, I just want to remind everyone to have yourself muted unless you're speaking. For the pre-meeting, it might not be as big of an issue, but definitely during the hearing when all of us are in the public hearing, there's going to be a lot of people. So just be mindful of that. So
I'm sorry, I have a question. I'm having some tech issues here.
okay.
I can see everyone, but I can't see your screen you're sharing. I had it before and it's gone away.
So let me stop sharing and try sharing again. Is anyone else having that issue?
I'm not having that issue. Yeah, I'm not having that issue at all. So Chris, you might try stop sharing and then reshare. And if it's not working, Deborah,
Yep, that's what I'm going to try to do.
Just want to log back, log out and log back in.
Good. Looks good. Thank you.
Working? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. So Tom, did you want to make a statement about tonight's hearing? Tom Worth?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. We are not going to be able to have decisions tonight. We have to hold the hearings open because we realize that the posted signs that are supposed to be required at each site weren't issued. And so that's where we are. We just didn't see a way around doing that one notice requirement. And so
so Tom, what does that mean?
Tonight will be carried over to next month.
Will they all need to return and have new hearings next month?
Yes.
So the objective of tonight's meeting then is what? Just to really collect information from them, have them.
Yes, because we put out notices and everything, so there will be presumably people from the public that, well, there have been people who've submitted comments, and then there are people who will be expecting testimony, and yeah, so that's the way we have to go.
Okay, so we'll do everything. We'll ask questions, but we just won't deliberate and vote.
That's right.
Tom, it's Gerald. Would it be? It sounds like we've already ruled this out, but it would make sense just to announce at 6 o'clock that we're holding these 3 cases to the following month, because we only have 3 cases.
No, it wouldn't.
Okay.
No, we thought about it. It wouldn't.
Okay.
I apologize for it,
quick.
that we'll get a decision tonight on these things, and it increases your docket next month, but we just didn't see a way around it.
It's going to be, it'll be quick anyway with these 3 cases. And it's always good to see everyone.
So if there's no more questions on that element of tonight's hearing, I'll just read the pre-meeting welcome, and then we will get into, I guess I have a question for Tom before I do that. Do we have to, so I have listed on my virtual hearing board guidelines that guide us through this hearing. Legal counsel reads and explains waiver of rules and procedures. We have to do that for every hearing that we're doing virtually, correct?
I had forgotten that, but I can pull that up while you're doing other things.
Okay, we can do that at the end of the pre-meeting then. So I'll just, I'll go through.
Yeah, it should be at the beginning of the main hearing anyway.
Okay.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yep, no problem. I just saw it on my list here and thought I'd say something. So the pre-meeting welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. This begins the pre-meeting for the Rochester Preservation Board, June 3rd, 2020 hearing. During the pre-meeting, staff and board member review cases. There is no participation by applicants or the public. Following the conclusion of the pre-meeting, a public hearing will be held at 6 p.m. Here, all cases will be heard. Applicants will present comments submitted after staff reports were compiled, will be read into the record. I ask that all staff and board members mute their microphone at this time and keep themselves muted unless they are going to speak. Now, the chat function will not be used during the course of the hearing, as we didn't use it in the last hearing. And let's just take a look and make sure everyone's names are accurately depicted, which I believe they are. I think Jill already did that. And okay, so let's go through each of the cases first and do the confirmations of site visitation by board members so that we don't have to go through that in the hearing. So I guess only speak if you didn't visit the site, since this board typically has a really good track record of visiting all the sites. So the first case, 1100 South Goodman Street. Was there anyone who did not visit the site? No, moving on. 149 South Fitzhugh Street. Was there anyone who did not visit the site? 1100 Park Avenue. Was there anyone who did not visit the site? Okay, so all board members visited each of the 3 sites for the case hearings tonight. So now I guess we'll just go through the cases. So case 1, did anyone have any concerns or questions about this application? Anything that was not clear from the application to discuss?
Yeah, I did. That's a big campus, and I wish that one map they'd given had pointed to where the specific areas were that they wanted us to look at, because I was walking around that fence trying to figure out where the aluminum fence was, and I couldn't quite figure that out. Yeah, if that map had just pointed to the specific places that they wanted us to look.
So you're talking about the section of aluminum fencing that was mentioned in the appendix, correct?
Right.
The one that was installed prior to 2012?
That's correct.
So that was...
Chris, if I can just follow up on Jim's question, I had a similar problem. So I visited the site. I could see exactly where the aluminum fencing is on Highland, but I couldn't figure out, is that all they're asking about, this stretch of fence and gate on Highland, or was there something else? Because they had photographs of these brick pillars that are on Goodman. So like Jim, I just found it a very difficult application to interpret.
So I'm sorry, could you clarify? You're wondering if that's part of the application, the aluminum fencing?
So for me, I could see the gate on Highland with the finials that were the wrong ones that they want to switch out. And so for me, I stood there wondering, is this the whole of the application? They want to switch out this gate and switch out this section of fencing, or was there something more? But I'm agreeing with Jim. I just don't think they did a very good job diagramming what their proposal is. Is it just that gate on Highland, or is there something more going on?
So it's, if we go to the 3rd page of the application here, it shows clearly that the section of fencing that they're looking to install is here, 8 feet here, and then a gate for the sidewalk. That's the only new fencing. That last piece was mentioned because they wanted to clarify that that was installed prior to the designation of this property as like a landmark. So that was part of why they included that, just to clarify, because we thought that, they thought that, the board members would be coming to the site. We should probably point this out and just explain it, because it might be something that comes up as a question.
Right, so the irony is I didn't understand that at all, because I didn't know what Campus Drive was. And so I just looked for the photo, and they had all these photos of the metal fencing on the last 5 pages or so. 5 or 6 pages are all about metal fencing on Highland. So I came to think that must be what their proposal was.
Yeah, I did too, because I didn't know why we had those things, and I kept trying to find those locations that were in the photographs, and just thoroughly got confused by the whole thing.
Nope, this is the only fencing that they're proposing are this section here, which is on Campus Drive, that main entry along South Goodman Street, for clarification.
Well, I looked at that pretty closely, so I guess I can talk to it, but.
Yeah, I visited it, but I guess, so the proposal is to do what there? To put up metal fencing there?
To install approximately 8 linear feet of 4-foot tall steel ornamental fencing at the west entry of the site along Campus Drive. Right here.
Okay. Okay, so I'll just say, I feel bad now, but like Jim, I found this very difficult to understand.
Yeah, I'm with you,
Okay.
Jeremy.
I had a question for the board, just wondering what fellow members think about the steel material, steel fencing. Since it's not addressed in preservation design guidelines, is steel okay? Opinions? Chris, you're muted.
Thank you. I think it's appropriate.
Is steel, and I had trouble figuring this out too, is steel different from wrought iron?
I think so. I'll look it up.
Well, iron and steel are different, but I think they're similar. They're not saying aluminum. So I'm familiar with wrought iron as a material and aluminum. So I wasn't sure where steel fit into the spectrum.
I think steel is stronger and heftier, more like the wrought iron compared to aluminum, but I'm not positive. Jason, do you have any
It
thoughts?
differs, the
David?
definition is wrought iron differs from steel in that it's created as a process whereby liquid iron is mixed with slag in an environment designed to keep its carbon content low. It's a finely tuned balancing act that takes years of training, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, you don't make wrought iron anymore. It's steel. It's just a metal fence. That's exactly what.
Steel's better than aluminum, right?
Yeah.
Steel's good, okay.
Yeah, because you won't see all the rivets. If it's steel, they can weld it together rather than
Right.
rivet it and screw it together.
Right, gotcha. And it weathers well.
Yeah, so I suggest asking that on the record or I guess can't ask that. Well, yeah, we'll have the applicant there. So yeah, asking on the record, like why the choice. I mean, now we know, but to put it on the record would be a good thing.
Okay. And
Steel's
Tom,
gonna
you're
be
saying
more
ask about steel versus wrought iron or steel versus aluminum, or how would you like me to ask that?
I think steel versus wrought iron, because now the aluminum issue is out of the picture, because
Right. It's being
we
replaced.
initially we didn't know at first that it had been installed before landmark designation. Now we do, that off the table, and so we're on these two little segments on either side of the entrance drive.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Are there any more questions or comments?
There's no information on the gate specifically, so I guess just want to clarify, is it the same height? Swing, does it look any different than the the 8-foot section? I mean, gates sometimes have more elements to them, and I actually prefer a drawing or some kind of sketch that would let us know what the gate looks like in between the two piers.
Okay. So
They have to come back next month anyway. Can't we just get more information from them so that it's clearer to us?
So that's an opportunity that you have tonight, is to, if there are elements of any application that you see as missing information or clarification sort of information, we have to public notice for it again. So yes, that would be part of your comments tonight for any application.
Or not necessarily comments, but the questions, ask those things so that it's on the record.
Okay,
I got one more, I guess, and there's a slope to the land as it for the 8-foot section, and I'm not sure that the 8-foot could proceed linearly from the So are they doing anything to resolve the hillside? Are they cutting into it anymore? Do they get an 8-foot straight run off of that pier? Just maybe a couple clarifications on some grading and such over there.
Okay. Moving on to the next application here. Also, this public comment did come in. I don't believe I sent this to board members today after it came in last night from a member of the public. So I just want to give you a chance to read that before I read that at the hearing.
This is for the one we just finished discussing.
Correct.
And maybe to preface this so you don't waste your time reading some of this, they raised questions about the preservation easement area. And these segments of fence are not within the preservation easement area. So that's not really a relevant issue here.
Correct.
Okay.
Is everyone done reading that? There's a second page to it.
Okay.
So Tom just spoke to the preservation to the easement area, but it's not relevant to us what construction is eventually going to take place, is it?
Construction of.
You're referring to this part? The proposed
Yes.
construction appears to be spanning two of them, both lots?
Yeah.
It's.
Like we don't care about lot
the
1 and
key-
lot 7.
Yeah,
We just care about
you
is
don't.
the gate appropriate.
Yeah, the aesthetics and everything else, it doesn't, it's not relevant.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that is relevant here, and that's where we identified the mistake, was that we didn't get the signs posted.
Oh yeah, I didn't see a sign anywhere. That's right.
Yep. Okay, so moving on to the next application, 149 South Fitzhugh Street. Did anyone have any major comments or more of questions about the application for this one?
I was a little unclear where all these trees are going because it seemed to me like the lot was extremely narrow, and I kept looking at that diagram with the red dots.
This one here?
And the one side, it's right along what they call the fire something or other, but that's like a very narrow, not wide enough to be a driveway, but it's and then the ones on the other side seemed like they were going to be right up against the house on the nearby property, which is only recognized by that little thing above the red dots, those three dots to the right. So it's like, wow, how big these trees? They're going to be, what it said there, how tall they were going to be, 9 feet or something like that. And
Mature height of 12 to 14 feet with a spread of 3 to 4 feet.
I guess it was the spread of 3 to 4 feet. I thought, my God, it seemed to me like that was going to be intruding on the neighboring property and that neighboring house. So I was a little wondering about that. The painting of those windows, I could see they wanted them to match the cornerstones, I guess. And so that, I didn't find that as objectionable, but those trees just really confused me because you can kind of see, even looking down that so-called driveway, that it looks like those trees would just be pressed right up against the house. The neighboring building, I should say.
Okay.
So my assumption, I noticed the same thing Jim noticed, but my assumption is our job is simply to say if the arborvitae are appropriate. It's up to the city to determine whether or not they can be that close to the property line.
Or did you mean appropriateness in that way? How close it is to the other buildings?
Well, I guess that's what I'm questioning, because it just seemed like there's little regard for the neighboring property, that they were just going to be right up against it. Because that diagram, the bottom half of the diagram, where that little driveway or what seems to be, just goes right along the house itself. And it, yeah, because that part that juts out to the right, you know, I mean, I couldn't see how they were going to get trees past that unless they were planning to just get rid of that whole driveway itself. It was just very confusing to me.
Did anyone have any other questions?
Just one comment about the painting of the masonry. I don't remember what section of the city code it is, but you're not allowed to paint unpainted masonry with new paint. So what they're asking for isn't even allowed by city code. So do we need to go look that up, or we just?
So they're actually looking to only paint the ornamental features, not the paint on the house.
Yeah, they're looking to paint
Existing wood.
They can paint wood. You can't paint masonry. And
No, but they're painting. No, they're proposing to paint masonry, to paint stone.
Oh, it's the masonry stone ornament. I see what you're saying.
But the stone is already painted. What we're
It-
seeing is not the natural stone color. We're seeing a gray paint on top of the stone.
Yeah,
That was my
what I
understanding
thought
from the
too.
applicant.
So the stone is painted. That was actually a question that I had.
You know, like the fill.
in the past, we've had people remove paint from their masonry.
It's just going to be a wear item down the road. If you paint it, it's not going to hold on there. I think we got to be maybe ask some questions on whether we can get the paint off of that and how deteriorated it is. What you know, what's the purpose of the painting? Because 5 years down the road, it's probably not going to look much better. I wouldn't think. Jason, any?
No, the proper treatment is to clean that paint off and restore it back to its natural stone finish.
I agree.
That would be fine with me. Yeah.
I mean, what they'll do is they'll just leave the old paint on the stone, which they have a right to do. They didn't paint it. We can't require that. We can't require them to remove old paint.
Well, kind of did on that guy's porch.
Well, that was different.
I guess the extent of how old is old, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
a year ago, a week ago.
He painted the foundation to his house. That was different. These are people who inherited what appeared to me to be very old paint on stone.
Well, I'm happy with no new paint. And
Yeah, we can't start. I would be really upset if we start going around requiring people to remove previously painted, tastefully done paint.
Well, I remember that one though with the porch, those where the water was supposed to pour out, they've been painted to look like tongues, bright red. All right.
Okay. The last item, 1100 Park Avenue, if the board recalls, previous application, 8/13/1920 was for landscaping in the rear yard and fencing. Under that application, the applicant neglected to include a tree in the rear yard, which is located in this corner here, which is sort of in the way of the fence posts. So they are coming forward with a new application to remove that tree. It was previously listed as a Norway maple, but that was an error that was corrected. So you'll see that in the new agenda that I sent out and in the staff report that's included here, that it says a linden tree opposed to the Norway maple, which was listed previously, and incorrect information. Any comments or questions about the application itself?
Well, there was no way to get back to that back fence, so I couldn't really, I looked around to see if there was any kind of an alley, but there wasn't.
So just for the record, the homeowner was on the sidewalk weeding when I was there, so I chatted with him. He asked what I was doing, and I explained who I was and why I was there. It wasn't a long chat. He said the only way to see the tree was to go to the Academy of Medicine on East Avenue and go into their parking lot. And I didn't do that, but he said there was no way to see it from Park Avenue.
I did go into the Academy of Medicine this afternoon and still had a hard time picking out which tree it was. So I think that kind of speaks to that it might not ever be missed if I couldn't find the tree.
Yeah, so maybe, Jason, since that kind of helping inform your judgment about it, if you could raise that during the question part of the hearing, that would be
Well,
helpful.
it's not really a question, but I will definitely make the point that it would not be missed if it was not there.
Yeah, I mean, there's reason I phrase it during the question time is like, because I can't think of another part where you could get it in.
Could I ask a procedural question?
Sure.
So we're not making decisions tonight. Next week, I'm sorry, next month. So we're going to meet again in a month. These 3 cases will be on our docket again in a month. Are we simply making decisions on those 3 cases next month, or will the applicants have a fresh opportunity to present and for us to ask more questions? Like next month, are we just making decisions on these cases, or will there be an opportunity for more questions and discussion?
The latter, that they'll present again.
Okay, so it would be in our interest to do this in a relatively expeditious fashion tonight, given that we're bringing them all back next month.
Yeah, and it would be in your interest, like, yeah, to raise any questions that you think they need to address more detail in their application.
Correct. I just want to second what Tom's saying, is that the idea is, behave as if this is a regular hearing. You're just not going to be able to vote. So if there are questions about anything that's being proposed, or you feel that more information is required of anything, now is the time to express that.
So Jill, if we, next month, we are going to be making the same comments and asking the same questions as tonight, as well as any, relevant questions, comments about any new materials that come in next month. I mean, we're basically repeating tonight, next month, along with looking at any new details or whatever, right?
You don't need to repeat everything that you've gone over. The next hearing, you'll address things that are new. And if they've presented new evidence, that's what you're going to be commenting on. If you have additional questions or comments on what has been presented tonight at next month's hearing, you can talk about that as well.
Yeah, so I mean, the way this works is the record, this is deemed like one continuous hearing. So what happens tonight will be part of the hearing record on next month's hearing when you reach a decision. So for example, if someone sued on this, both hearings would be, in the transcripts thereof, would be part of the record.
Okay. Also, I just want to note there's a public comment for this one as well. very simple comment. I will send both of these public comments, which were the only comments that we received, to all the board members during the break prior to the public hearing, so you have them to refer to in the public hearing. So this comes from Vicki Burns. And she noted her support for the Norway maple. This was sent in. So the agenda was amended prior to this date, but I'm guessing that this member of the public still thought it was a Norway maple from the previous iteration of the application. I did email them back and note that, you know, it is not a Norway maple, it's actually a linden tree. They did not amend their public comment for that change that I noted to them. So those are all of the items for tonight's hearing.
Chris, just out of curiosity, how many do we have next? Do we know how many we have next month so far?
So it's sort of up in the air at this point because the deadline is not till Monday.
Right.
But I'm looking at probably between around, I think that I have, if these three are going back for the next hearing in July to be decided on, in addition to maybe 6 other ones. So we're looking at 9 maybe, and that's somewhere in the middle. It could be 1 or 2 less than that. It could be 1 or 2 more. So around 9.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that is our pre-meeting. If we want to take a break until 6 o'clock, where we can start the public hearing. So if everyone
Chris,
wants.